My name is Cynthia. All of my family and the majority of my childhood and college friends call me Cindy and still do to this day. When I was in my young adult years, I changed and started using my birth-given name, Cynthia, because I looked really young for my age, and I thought if I used a more grown-up name, people would take me more serious as an adult. And to some degree, it worked. Recently, I have been asked by quite a few people actually if I would give my testimony. And I thought, well, there's no better place than the end of this Women of Joy conference video. So here goes my journey. I was born on July 17th, 1969 in Hollywood, Florida in Halifax Hospital. When I was born, there was my mom and my older brother. We are 2 years apart. When we were 3 and 5, my mom met one of the most wonderful men I will ever know in my life. They got married, and 5 years later, they gave us a sibling, and our sister was born. We grew up in a house that was full of love and a very godly home. We grew up in church and were very active. And in my early elementary years, my parents decided to become a foster family. And what an exciting journey that in itself was. We had so many infants come in and out of our home. And then eventually we kept some older adults who had some kind of mental impairment. And then we started keeping handicapped children as well. We had over 150 lives that came to live with us during our time as a foster family. So I grew up and had a really great childhood. And in high school, I met who is now my husband, but at that time, he was not the man for me. I had my heart set on higher things like a college education, and I wanted to travel the world, and I wanted to share Jesus with others. And so that's what I set my goals to do. I went to Winthrop, and after 4 years, I left, and I became a missionary. And I did indeed get to have many opportunities to witness and be a light to the world. The funny thing is so many people would tell me along the way that my name should actually be Joy, because I seem to just radiate joy. And everywhere I went, it seems like I left a surmountable amount of joy. And so eventually, joy became like my life word. It is my legacy to leave joy behind. Wherever I go, I want every person in every life that I ever come in contact with and touch to have a little bit more joy than what they had before they met me. It just so happens, it's uncanny, that this very conference that you saw at the beginning of this video is called Women of Joy. Back in the day, it actually used to be called Women of Faith. And somewhere along the line, it got changed to Women of Joy. And I'm so glad it did, because it helps motivate me to continue being a woman of joy. I got married when I was 27 and was so careful to make sure that I took my time, I didn't rush, that I found the right person for me. And I did for 10 years. Through our marriage, I was able to adopt my husband's son. He came into my life when he was 3 months old, so he was just as good as mine. At his second birthday, I was able to legally adopt him as my own. We also brought into our union of marriage 2 other boys, and so 3 boys we raised. Sadly, our marriage and our union did not last. I'm not going to go into a lot of great detail because he and I still to this day work to be friends and be everything that we can for our children. But life was hard, raising 3 boys, and sometimes he just needed to step out. And that's the politest way I know to say it because, well, let's just put it this way. The past is in the past, and I choose not to live in the past. So even though he was unfaithful in our marriage, today we are faithful at being great and excellent parents for our boys, even though they're all grown. But that journey led me back to Todd, a friend from high school. And little did I know that he was truly meant to be my soulmate and has been an amazing husband and father, and I could not ask for a better partner in life. In fact, I don't know what I would have done recently in some health concerns and issues that I've recently had. And I think this is the part of my journey where most people really want me to talk on. I began to have some issues, and it just seemed like my back hurt all the time. It hurt to stand, it hurt to sit, it hurt to lay down, and I was in so much pain. So I went to the doctors, and I found out that my spine was crushing my nerves, and I was going to have emergency surgery. Now, I had just recovered from tearing 3 tendons in my foot, and going through that surgery and recovering and wearing a boot for 6 months, 3 before surgery and 3 to 4 after, it was crazy. I was not ready for another surgery, but they told me that if I didn't have this surgery, that I would end up in a wheelchair permanently and that my lifespan would be cut way short. So, surgery it was. And so on February 2nd, 2020, yes, 2020, no, 2021, I had surgery. February 2nd is my youngest son's birthday. Anyway, that was just a little fact. I went in for surgery. It was supposed to be a 4.5-hour surgery, and I was supposed to be in and out of recovery, home that day or the next day, with about a 3-month recovery. Unfortunately, on that day, I was in surgery for 8.5 hours, and they were at a standstill. They had gone in and they carved out a lot of bone out of my spine, and they were inserting a cage so that when that bone grew back, because it would, that it would grow around the cage, but the cage would protect my nerves from my spine crushing them again. So it would literally stop the bone from growing. They were supposed to insert the cage through the back of the spine, but there was so much swelling that they couldn't do that. And so they had to insert it through the side. But my body needed to rest. It had been under for way too long. So they put me in recovery. So basically 2 days later, they took me back in surgery, inserted the cage through the side of the spine, and closed me up. During the time that I was in recovery waiting to go back into surgery, I was basically laying open. So it was very important that I remained sedated so that I didn't cause any damage or do anything that would cause infection. It's a very serious matter. When I woke up from the second surgery, because I don't even remember waking up from the first surgery. Like I said, they kept me sedated. But when I woke up from the second surgery, when I woke up, it was pitch black. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was going on. And it took me a moment to realize that I was in a hospital room. And there was a slight light coming in through a very, very small crack in the door to my room. I noticed that there was a table beside me, and I went to grab what looked like my cell phone, and it was. And it took me almost 45 minutes to figure out how to use that phone. And eventually I called my husband. This was all during COVID, so he was not able to come in the room and be with me. And when I heard his voice, I remember just crying. And I asked him, where am I and what is happening? And to the best of his knowledge, he told me what he knew, but it was very limited. When he was in the waiting room, they did a good job of keeping him up to date on surgery 1. But as he had to go home and wait for me to recover and to go into the other surgery, he had been told very little. In fact, he didn't know if I'd come through the surgery. He didn't know when I was in recovery. He didn't know how long I was in recovery. But he was just as happy to hear my voice as I was to hear his. So I then began searching for the call button on the bed, and I called somebody. And they came in and they turned on the light and they began to tell me, what I've pretty much shared with you. But then the realization hit. I couldn't feel my leg. And I began to panic. And of course I couldn't move. I was at that point completely, not really paralyzed, but I had no feeling from like the neck down at that moment. And all I could move was my head and my arms. And I was scared. Well, as the night progressed and the next day came, I got more and more feeling back. And I was able, to sit up. But the long short of it was, I still couldn't feel my leg. The doctor came in to check on me and began to tell me that it was all temporary and it would all come back. I needed some time. So he ordered for the doctors to bring in these, or the nurses, to bring in these things to wrap around my legs. And what they would do is constantly massage my legs to try and get the circulation going, to get the nerves moving. Because when they inserted the cage in the side of my spine, they had to move a big nerve that runs along the side of your hip, from your back of your spine, down your hip, down your leg. And when they did that, it aggravated and upset the nerves. So I was like, okay. So I was patient. Well, then they brought in someone to do physical therapy with me and whatnot. Long short, a couple days later, they told me that 2 things were going to happen. Either I would get up and walk on that leg and show them that I could move, or I was going to have to go to a rehabilitation center for a couple months. I did not want to be away from my husband, and I was so upset. And I started telling them about all the walkers and stuff we had at home that we had already purchased, because we were already told that I would need some kind of assistance. But unfortunately, because of my situation, the caseworker that was assigned to me helped my husband get a wheelchair for me. So a wheelchair was ordered. But I still had this dilemma. I had to walk if I was going to go home. And I wanted to go home and recover. Well, it wasn't just a matter of walking, but I didn't know that at first. So I gave it everything I had. They used a gait belt around me to help hold me up, and all I had to do was be able to move my leg with that walker. Now, mind you, I had no muscle control and I had no feeling. But I began walking those halls. It was a very slow process, but that's all I needed. I just needed to be able to get from the car into my house. Well, then the second dilemma came a couple days after practicing walking, and I'd make them come back as many times as they would. I wanted to get up and walk. I wanted to get stronger, and I wanted to do everything possible to go home. And then they told me, "We've been told that you have steps at home." I said, "Yes, to get into my house, there are steps I have to go up." They told me that I had to be able to go up and down steps. I was like, what? So we practiced. It took hours just to get up one step. But the morning of my release, I finally managed to go up those steps and down. Granted, I couldn't move after that. They had to get me in a wheelchair quick, but I did it. And that's what I told them. I did everything you asked me. So I'm going home. So my will and my determination, which is something about me, I'm not a quitter, and I will give up. You tell me to do something, I will do it. So I got to go home. They let my husband come up, and they told him everything that I needed to do. Even when they were trying to tell me that I was going to have to go to a rehabilitation center, the caseworker snuck him up. I'm so grateful for her because she was my advocate that I would be much better off at home. The only thing is I couldn't be left alone. Not being able to get up and walk, I couldn't be left alone. So my friend Beverly, that you've heard me talk about quite a bit, she came and she stayed with me for almost 2 months. But at first, even though she came to stay with me, Todd didn't go back to work right away. But Miss Beverly was kind of there to help him, be, a help to him, and take some of the burden and the load off. Because everything I did, going to the bathroom, getting up to the couch, to the recliner, all of that, I needed assistance. In fact, the first 3 months home, I never saw my bed. I slept in a recliner. I'll never forget that first night that I did finally sleep in the bed. Oh my gosh, the things that we take for granted. But I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I began in-home physical therapy, and it didn't take long before I was making real big progress. Our house looked like a hospital because I couldn't walk. We had a potty chair in the living room. That's where I went to the bathroom. And we just had to kind of let people know, hey, going to the bathroom in the living room. But my family, they were wonderful. And they worked with me. And before long, my physical therapists, they were not surprised at the progress I was making, the determination that I had. And real quickly, I gained mobility back in my leg. And eventually, I did have issues with my left leg and numbness. But nonetheless, I got mobility, but not feeling. And to this day, I still don't have feeling from the hip to the knees, but that's okay. I am walking. Praise the Lord. And eventually, my in-home therapy became outpatient therapy. And of course, my husband would have to take off work to get me there and whatnot, but I was making progress until I wasn't. I came home in February, and in May, the first day that I told everyone that I could be by myself, that I could get around enough, that I'd be okay. Well, I decided to be very brave that day, and I decided that I wanted to get dressed. I was so tired of laying around in pajamas all the time. I wasn't going anywhere, but I just wanted to get dressed. I wanted to feel human. And I proceeded to try and get dressed. And as I was trying to get dressed, and I was trying to put my pants on, my legs just slid out from under me like a split, and that's what I did. But as I did the split, my left leg went completely straight, but my right leg, as it almost got to the floor, my leg bent and my knee smacked the floor, and I hit hard and it hurt. And Sadly, I was telling you that I was trying to put my pants on, but truth be known, I was trying to put my pull-up on. No feeling, one must wear pull-ups. There was a time I couldn't talk about that, but you know what? Life and breath on this world, in order for that to happen, I have to wear pull-ups. It's a fact of life, okay? Not ashamed of it anymore. It is what it is. But I was not successful. So there I lay, butt naked, on the floor, and no one there around, and there was no way I could get up. And I thought to myself, what did I do? My phone was in the living room. I was in trouble. We were taking care of our Marine son's dog, Mackenzie, and then we have our dog, Sadie. Mackenzie literally snuggled up to the front side of me. I was laying on my side, and Sadie came and snuggled up to my backside. I was literally sandwiched by these dogs, who not only tenderly and lovingly comforted me, but they provided me with warmth on that cold floor. And I happened to see on the floor beside the bed where I keep it, my tablet. And I thought, yes, Lord. So I sat there and I wiggled my legs because I can feel from the knee down. And I pulled that tablet to me, and through Messenger, I was able to call Todd. And I told him what happened. It took him 45 minutes to get to me, but he did. Always so gracious, always so kind, cutting jokes to make me feel better. Well, I was hurting really bad in my leg, and the pain was pretty intense. So I called the doctor's office and I told them what happened. And they told me if I thought it was really bad to go on to the ER. Well, I told them that I would be there in like 6 days for a follow-up appointment. And they were going to do x-rays then. So there was no point in me going to the ER for x-rays and then turn around going back to them. So I would just wait. What I also haven't told you is that I had 3 wounds from that surgery. One of them refused to heal, and in fact had gotten infected, and I was having to go back and forth to the wound center. It is by the grace of God that my husband didn't lose his job. Joy, as all I can keep telling you, is joy in the middle of the storms. Well, I went to my doctor and they did x-rays as they were supposed to. But when they went to x-ray my knee, they could not get a clear image, and they had to send me for an MRI. The MRI could not get a clear image. And the reason being is when I was 10 years old, my brother had shot me in the knee with a BB gun, and we thought there were only 2 bullets. One bounced off and one went through. Well, it didn't go like all the way through, but my grandfather actually had to dig it out with a pocket knife. But apparently there was a 3rd BB, and it was inside my knee. And therefore, that's why the imaging couldn't be seen. So, things were just kind of like left as they were, and just kind of praying and hoping that the pain would subside, and it did. But little did I know that there were blood clots in my knee. And in August, I started having problems breathing, and I thought it was bronchitis. You know, I thought I'd gotten a cold or something, and because my immune system was low and whatnot. And finally, about 3 o'clock one morning, well, on August the 10th, I sat up and I said to my husband, I can't deal with this anymore. It really hurts to breathe. So we called my doctor, and she decided to send me to an emergency clinic that was about an hour from our house for them to treat me, because she was so busy that day, and she wouldn't have the facility or the the equipment to really do what I needed done. So we went. We didn't take anything. No crochet. I never go anywhere without crochet. Didn't take any pull-ups. Didn't take our little diaper bag that we normally carry because literally we thought maybe I had bronchitis. They would see me, they'd give me an antibiotic and send us home. Well, to speed the story up, I did not have bronchitis. The x-rays revealed that I had 4 blood clots in my lungs, 2 on each side of the ventricles. And so I was ambulanced right away to the hospital. Now, to look at me, you would not think that I was having a full-fledged embolism, but that's what I was. Even the nurses, when I got to the ER, told the EMTs that there was another person coming in and the last room was for them because they were, on death's door. And when that other patient arrived, they looked back at me and saw me on oxygen and that patient not. And they were like, Vanderson? And the EMT's like, yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, stat, get her in this room. And so they did, which was a good thing because when I arrived, the hallways were just filled with bed after bed with a patient in it. And I mean, you almost could not walk without there being a bed with a patient. And I did not want to be one of those. They could not believe that I literally was at death's door because I didn't look it. I wasn't acting like it. The slightest movement and my life could be over because of those clots. And so they got me in there. Well, after they got me in, settled, did all my vitals and blah, 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 I kept telling my nurse, I need to go to the bathroom. And she's like, well, honey, you got on a pull-up, so just go. And I'm like, well, do y'all have any more? And they're like, we don't have pull-ups, but we have pads, like a puppy pad. I was like, oh no. I kept begging to go to the bathroom. And they were trying to get a bedside toilet brought in to my room so I wouldn't have to move far because, again, remember, any slight movement could upset those clots and take my life. 2 hours later, I still had not gone to the bathroom. And I said to them, when my nurse came back in to check on us, I said, I've got to go to the bathroom. Like, my bladder is going to burst. It's painful. And she's like, I don't know where that bedside toilet is. She goes, okay, we're going to go and we're going to get back and be done, okay? And I said, okay. She got me in the wheelchair and we were going down the hallway. We were laughing and talking. You honestly would not know how dangerously close I was to death's door. Got me into the bathroom. The wheelchair was able to go in. And all I had to do was stand up. She helped me get my pants down because I had on a hospital gown and nothing under it, but I still had on my jeans, my pull-up, and my socks and shoes. I go to the bathroom and I do my business, and at that point I'm sitting on the toilet and I appear to be fine. So she goes and stands at the door with the door cracked open to give me a little bit of privacy. Well, I finished going to the bathroom, bladder satisfied, and we're still talking and laughing, and I stand up and I bend over to pull my pull-up up, and that was it. In that moment, I died. Now, before I go further, I have to tell you something. On the floor under the sink was a dead roach. Now, sadly, in my room, before I went to the bathroom, Todd and I saw one crawling on the wall. It was alive. Anyway, I was like, oh my gosh, wait till I get back and tell Todd about that roach. The last thing I would ever have wanted was to be on that bathroom floor. Well, when I was pulling my pull-up up, I actually got lightheaded because they had to take the oxygen off of me in order for me to do all of that. And so when I was wheeled down the hallway to the bathroom, I had no oxygen. I started getting lightheaded. And she looked at me and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm light." And about that time, I turned and just fell into the wheelchair. That's the moment I actually died. And before she could get to me, I fell over across the toilet. I don't know exactly how long I was out. It could not have been very long. But needless to say, when I was revived, they had pulled me off the toilet, and this is all stuff I've been told, and I was on the floor, and there were 8 people around me. And my official nurse asked another nurse to take my socks and shoes off. And that nurse got up and left, and she's like, "Where are you going?" She goes, "I'm going to get gloves." My nurse says, "My God." And she jumps up and she starts ripping my socks and shoes off, pulling my pants off, pulling the pull-up off. I am like butt naked pretty much on this floor with this hospital gown somewhat. There were men and women nurses all around me, and they were resuscitating me and then getting me a portable oxygen tank. And of course, as soon as I had the oxygen, they then proceeded to get me back in the wheelchair. But by then, even the oxygen that I had, I was struggling to breathe. And, my nurse was screaming at everybody. They got me back in that bed. Well, when I left, I was full of color, just like you see, rosy pink cheeks and everything. When I come back in, I was, practically naked. I was gray. And I will never forget seeing Todd's eyes. I could see the panic and the fear in his eyes. Well, before they got me in the bed, they tried putting one of those full oxygen masks on my face. I am very claustrophobic, and I couldn't breathe with that. I couldn't calm down enough to allow it to do what it needed to do, and I kept pushing it away, and they were so scared of losing me again. And so they're trying to get, and I'm like trying to talk, but I couldn't talk. And it was a battle. And they finally had to just all come in and scoop me up and put me back in that bed. And it was everything. They practically had a nurse forcing that mask on my face because I kept trying to push it off. And finally, I calmed down, and they were able to put just the little oxygen through the nose again. And she's like, "That's it. You are not getting out of this bed until surgery." About 30, 45 minutes after my nurse was supposed to be gone, she appears back in my room. And she says, "I have to tell you something." She says, "When you left us, I knew it was my fault for even letting you get out of that bed. And I was so scared for you." And she said that I prayed and I asked God, "If you bring this girl back, I will believe that you are real." Well, when I came back to and was conscious and aware of things, it was her voice I heard. She was literally screaming, "Come back to me, come back to me, come back to me." And so she said that after she got off, she went down to the hospital chapel and gave her life to the Lord. And she had to come back up and tell me. There was just something about me that she felt she had to tell me. And so, mind you, I was very weak at that point. I was not doing a lot of movement, and I just had tears, silent tears coming down my face. And she asked me if I was a Christian, and I said yes. And I said, "I'm going to tell you, you drew me back from heaven." And I told her about my experience. When I left this world, my friends, mind you, I couldn't walk. And where I was, it was not anything how you picture heaven. So maybe I wasn't in full heaven, but I can tell you that it exists. But I was in a room. It was almost like a bar or a restaurant. I know, not what you picture heaven. And there were people, and I knew these people. However, I cannot tell you one single person. But when I was there, I knew them. Now, whether I truly knew them in my, worldly life and they passed on, or when we're in heaven, we just know each other. But everybody in that room was so happy to see me, and they were all there to celebrate me. And we were dancing. The girl who couldn't walk was dancing, laughing, deep belly laughing. I was happy, head kicked back, laughing, not a care in the world, no pain, no grief, no sorrow, just pure, unobliviated joy in the purest form. What I can tell you, and it took a while for bits and pieces to come back. It didn't all come back to me right away. But about a month after that happened, as my memory started letting go of things, and the only thing I've never retrieved are the faces of the people I saw there. All I can tell you is I knew them. Like I knew them by name. I knew who they were. They were very familiar. But I can't tell you who single one of them was. But I finally confessed to Todd that there was this pull, like a gravity pull. And as I could hear Allison screaming, "Come back to me, come back to me," there was another pull on me to stay. And all I can tell you is that I heard this voice say, "Not now. It's not your time." And I truly believe that that was Jesus talking to me. I went back for surgery, and I was supposed to be awake during all of the surgery because they were going to block everything from the waist down. Because they were going in through the leg and up the groin to my lungs to break those clots up. And as I was there, I was struggling. I started coughing. I started coughing out blood, so they began to have to sedate me a little bit. And in the end, they had to put me under fully. So mind you, February, I ended up being under anesthesia for a total of 14 and a half hours. Here I am again, just a couple months later, under full anesthesia again. On death's door at that. And already been on death's door. And I started coding on the table. And so they had to abandon the surgery. They got enough of the clots out that I would be safe, but I would have to take a certain medication to thin that blood out. I'm home from the hospital, and again, my physical therapy got brought back to the home. And I'm just going to continue to tell you in a very quick version, things just kept happening one after the other. There was the infection in the wound. There was UTIs after UTIs. I broke out with some rash from something I came in contact with when I was in the hospital. So I had this exterior rash. It was excruciating and painful and itched galore, and you couldn't scratch it, like it was deep in the tissues, in the nerves. And it just was one thing after the other. And then I fell again, and then it was just, setback after setback after setback. And I got angry with God. And I was like, why? Why would you take me from heaven? I was home with you, and bring me back to this. And I was so angry. I didn't quit loving him. I didn't quit having faith in him. But I was angry. And I would question him and question him. And by the next year, so this was August, by February of next year, 1 year from my anniversary date, finally I started getting answers. And it wasn't because he wasn't trying to tell me. It's because spiritually, I became still before the Lord. And I heard him. And he said, I'm not punishing you. I'm not trying to take you through this so that you're miserable. It was then that he revealed to me that he was still using me. With all of my limitations and my insecurities and my disability, he wanted me to know that he was still using me. He told me that people were watching my journey, and he was allowing me to go through these things so I could sit before people that were going through similar things or going through trials, not necessarily physical or health, but it might be financial or relationships or whatever. But so I could tell them, number one, I could testify that there's a heaven, that there is truly life after death. We don't experience death. When we go to heaven, that is life. That is the life we're born into this world for. This is just a temporary journey. And this journey is going to have its up and downs, its roller coaster of moments. It's going to have its fires and its trials and tribulations and storms. But we have to learn to have a grateful heart, because everything we go through, there's a reason and a purpose. Maybe God's trying to get our attention. Maybe he's trying to use us. But whatever it is, he never leaves us. He never forsakes us. And he reminded me all the way back to August 10th, to what happened in that ER bathroom. He gave me a second chance to come and live the life that he desired and he designed for me as his daughter. He's asked me to profess that heaven is real and that our loved ones who go there are okay. We can let them go. And he's also brought me back to live life to the fullest, to truly trust him in the storms of life and truly focus on the blessings and the joy that he wants me to have, and all the while professing. Because he says, I'm going to have people watching. They're going to watch you in your most vulnerable moments. They're going to watch you at your lowest of lows. But through it all, they're going to see a smile on your face and the joy in your heart. Doesn't mean that the struggles aren't there. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have them anymore. I just had some today. But I'm doing it with a grateful heart, because I know that one day I will come through this. Maybe here, maybe back there. But he wants me to tell you, you're not alone. He is walking every step of the way with you. To this day, I can walk, I can stand, I can bend. There are things I cannot do, but I'm doing way more than what I did February 2nd or August 10th. I have a job outside of the home that I drive to. I'm providing for my family. I'm doing things that I never thought I'd be able to do again. I still don't have feeling from the waist to the knees, but I can do things. With God, all things are possible. I have this beautiful platform that I get to come on and share joy in so many different ways, through Bible chats, through funny videos, through Happy Mail, yarn hauls, movie night. I get to share my life, I get to share my Jesus, and I get to share my joy. And y'all, I've got so much of all of it that I've got enough to share. And God said, I chose you. I chose you because I know you could get through this. And I know you could testify. And I know you could find the joy in it. And you could pass that joy along. But I knew it was going to be difficult for you. So long before you ever realized it, I chose a helpmate. I chose a man that would stand by you through the hard times, the ugly times, the good times, the joyful times, and he would be your support. Y'all, let me just tell you, full transparency, there were days I had to call my husband up and say, I pooped myself and it's everywhere. And he would have this 45-minute drive home, because from the time he got a relief to he got home, it was 45 minutes. And he would walk in that door and he'd begin telling me jokes. Instead of being frustrated and aggravated at what he had to clean up, besides me, he would tell me jokes to make me laugh and put me at ease. Because that's what love does. And that is still part of my testimony. Unconditional love. That's how we're supposed to love each other. Just like Jesus. We're to love unconditionally. No give or take, just unconditionally. Not with judgment, just unconditionally. I still deal with battles. Got all that worked out and taken care of, and I'm moving forward. And now all of a sudden my sugar, it wants to go high, it wants to go low. Never have I experienced low sugar, but I did, and I kept bottoming out and kept passing out. And now I'm on the other end of the spectrum where it's so high. I'm dealing with, sweating all the time and confusion and sometimes not knowing who I am and where I am or what I'm doing. Totally losing it. Having bad reactions to this insulin and that insulin until we find the right one. But today, I feel like I'm on the right insulin. I'm on the right path. Even though I wasn't necessarily trying, but I wasn't necessarily not trying. Got on the scale 3 days ago. I've lost 34 pounds since March 16th. I think it was the 16th. And my sugar today, the highest today, was 167. To God be the glory. I don't know what your trials and your fires and your storms look like. But whether they're small or whether they're big, 1, you are not alone. God is with you. 2, He's already working on a solution. 3, He's going to walk you through it or carry you through it. But He will get you through it. He just wants you to talk to Him. Even when you're angry, mad, frustrated, even in those moments where you can truly find something to laugh about and truly be joyful, He wants to be a part of all that. Don't deny Him. And don't deny Him on what He can do, because God is able to do only things that God can do. You are His masterpiece. So let Him work wonders and miracles in and through you. You never know whose life you're going to touch. You never know whose life you're going to make that infinite difference in. But I promise you, you are here with a plan and a purpose. God don't make no junk, and we are not here by happenstance. You are valuable. And that's what my testimony is here to share with you. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you letting me take you through the valleys and the mountaintops. But y'all, my story's not over, because the author of my life is still writing my story, chapter by chapter. And I can't wait to see what's in the next chapter, but I'll get there when He's ready. In the meantime, I'm going to have a grateful heart. I'm going to be thankful for everything that I have and everything that I don't have. And I'm going to live a life of joy. And I'm going to keep on sharing joy. And I encourage you to let your joy tanks overflow so you too can share joy. There's nothing that we can go through in this world, in this lifetime, that Jesus Himself did not experience. And we are covered by His blood. For God so loved the world, that's you and me, that He gave us His only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in Him should have everlasting life. Jesus came for you and I to have life and to have it abundantly. We don't know when our final breath will be, but until then, the greatest gift He's ever given us is each breath we take, every second that we have it. What are you going to do with your life? If you've not given your life to Jesus, I pray that you will. You will not regret it. There's no greater thing than walking through this life journey with Him. Let Him keep telling your story as I keep letting Him tell my story. And my story, I pray my story keeps being told long after I'm gone from here. Because I want to leave a legacy of love and joy, that when I'm not here, my legacy is still writing my story. I love you. And if no one's told you that recently, then here today, I'm telling you, I love you. Be joyful, my friends, and love one another. Thank you.